Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to day 29 of albums that are 30 years old in 2022. We've been looking back on the year 1992 all month long, 31 days of March, 31 of our absolute favorites that were released in the year 1992, celebrating their 30th birthday, 30th anniversary, however you want to call it. Today, we've got a very, very outstanding album from Sweden, released in this year on the Mellotronen label, produced by the band and Roger Skogh, S-K-O-G-H, not quite sure how he pronounces that. The debut album from Angloguard, Hybris. Man, this is terrific. Absolutely terrific. Man, if it wasn't for my top two, this could even be my number one. This is a complete throwback to the glorious sounds of the 70s by a very young band who loved the greats like King Crimson and Genesis and Yes and Jethro Tull and some of the Scandinavian prog bands of the 70s, as well as the great U.S. band, unknown U.S. band called Cathedral, not to be confused with Cathedral, the U.K. doom band. Terrific album. Personnel, hopefully I get these names correct. Tord Lindman on vocals and guitars. Jonas Endegard on guitars. Tomas Johnson on mellotron, Hammond organ, clavinet, pianet, korg, mono, poly, piano, church organ, so on and so forth, all sorts of keyboards. Anna Holmgren on flute, Jonah Hogberg on Rickenbacker bass pedals, and mellotron effects. Matthias Olsson, the great Matthias Olsson, on drums and all sorts of percussion and gongs and things like that, with an uncredited keyboard appearance by the great Par Lind. Fantastic album. It's proggy, it's folky, it's classical, it's like all sorts of things wrapped up in one. They did 2 studio albums in their initial run, plus a live album. Then they broke up for many years, and they got back together and released another studio album in 2012, which was equally as fantastic. We haven't seen anything from them on the recorded front since. They've played sporadic shows here and there. It's way too long in between albums for these guys, and I wish we would hear something else from them, because this is outstanding. This band was one of those couple of bands in the very early 90s that helped kind of spearhead and drive that kind of third wave of progressive rock. We had obviously the decade in the 70s, we had the movement in the 80s, especially from the UK, and then in the 90s you had all these other bands coming from all pockets of the world who were jumping back in and recording new progressive rock for the 90s, right, at a time when, the world was listening to anything but progressive rock, but alongside, Spock's Beard and Glass Hammer and the Flower Kings and so on and so forth. Anglerguard were one of the ones who were, really dipping back into the 70s, but giving us really cool, fresh music. A lot of instrumental stuff on this album. There are vocals in spots, sung in Swedish. Their second album would be totally instrumental, as with their third album, but here we've got some vocals, which, depending on what you think. I mean, it's in the Swedish tongue, so if you're someone who is English speaking, might be a little jarring to you, but they kind of mix with the overall quirkiness and like stop-start jarring kind of arrangements that are going on here. This is very much as it is a homage to the great prog albums of the 70s, there's a lot of classical bits on here as well. You've got the acoustic guitars, electric guitars, the flute, loads of mellotron, Hammond organ, synthesizers, piano. Just this whole, it's just like this light and shade, this constant yin and yang going on throughout this album. Gorgeous melodies, amazing playing, but just the arrangements are so different and so complex yet accessible. It's a very unique album. A very, very unique band. I could sit and talk about Angloguard all day long and kind of what they meant to the early 90s prog scene. But if you haven't heard Hybris, you owe it to yourself to check it out. Like I said, there's plenty of folky bits and passages. It's not a heavy album, but there are moments of bombast, but they go from the kind of the light and the shade, the dark and the light, the more bombastic to very tranquil. It's just, you listen to this and you just think of a bunch of musicians sitting out in the woods with a generator, and they got a little bit of electricity, and they got their acoustic instruments, their electric instruments, and they're just spending the day creating sounds. And that's what it comes across like, but it's very well composed, very meticulous, very structured, even though at times they seem to like kind of go off the rails. Fascinating album. So you got George Rock, Vandringar, I Vilsen Het. I never knew how to say any of these names of these songs, and there's the 4 main songs and a bonus track. Ifran Claret Til Claret, Kungbori, and the bonus track is Ganglat Fran Knapp Tibble, whatever. But yeah, let me see if there's any other pictures of the band on here. I don't know. Yeah, they're in here. Again, you got all these kind of wood scenes and things like that. This is pretty intense. Loads of Mellotron if you like that sort of thing. Wonderful little acoustic guitar bits. The flute is absolutely enchanting. The electric guitar is great, angular, kind of all over the place. Really, really great drumming and percussion. It's just a dynamite album, and I think Angloguard's discography is just absolutely perfect. Amazing stuff. So there you have it. Angloguard, Hybris from 1992 is my pick today. Day 29. Only 2 more days left. So let us know what you think of this album. If you heard, if you haven't, go listen to it. Come back. Let us know what you think. Also, throw down your day number 29 in the comments below. And we'll see you tomorrow with another episode of Albums That Are 30 Years Old in 2022. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, but of course we're here on YouTube all together all the damn time. I am Pete Pardo. We'll see you tomorrow morning with another one. Take care. Bye-bye.